G'day, everybody. The Two Ordinary Cops Arctic Edition. How we going?
Good, mate. I think I'm going a little bit better than you.
Mate, this is rubbish. I don't feel like I'm on like mainland Australia. It feels like I'm in the Antarctic on an expedition. It's blowing an absolute gale. There's the big east coast low down near Sydney that's pulling a huge westerly across northern New South Wales, and I think it's about 6 degrees, and it feels like it's about -8. And it's not fun, Schultzy.
No, apparently for everybody listening, I can actually see Damo at the moment. He's definitely wrapped up in whatever he can find, and I believe the fire's going full bore inside the house, and you're still cold, mate.
Mate, it may as well not be. It may as well be a candle. But that's all right. It's all right. I coming from someone who used to wear Jackie Hauser and Canterbury shorts and thongs, and that was basically as formal as I got. I can tell you I've got about 5 layers on. I'm inside my house and it's just not cutting it. But that's all right. I'll stop whinging now and we'll move on. Yeah.
Mate, no, that's all good. We've so mate, we have a special guest, but we'll get on to her in a minute. But we'll just do a couple of shout outs, mate. I believe you've got one from both of us know from Kalkaringi.
Yeah, we do. Kate Lumsden got onto us. So Kate's story is pretty funny actually. We met her when she was a young teenager in Kalkaringi when we were out just relieving. So we'd often go over to the butcher shop, and Kate's old man sort of owned the place, and the butcher was he was there. So that's Jason Scadden we've mentioned previously, and yeah, he was there. So we sort of knew them as the teenage kids running around playing in the background. Well, she ended up going to my old high school, Downlands in Toowoomba, as a boarder, and she's gone back up to the Territory, and she's now a detective in the NT Police.
Yeah.
So she's gotten in touch with us, and we're going to actually do a bit of work with her. So a bit of a shout out, Kate. We're going to talk to you shortly. And basically what she said is you guys are rubbish on social media. So she's going to come on board. So that's she's going to boost our social media a bit, which is good because I have no idea, and Schultzy's got a lot more of an idea than I do. So,
but still not an idea.
No, so that's really good. So thanks, Kate, for getting in touch. Really good stuff, and we'll talk to you shortly.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And look, when it comes to social media, my skills were probably set for policing and dealing with bad people. That's what I seem to be good at. Mate, we've actually got a couple of messages, and one from Colin Knoll. His CIB in Catherine, so your old hunting ground, and he's working with good old Greenie at the moment in there. So so thanks for reaching out, and I mean Greenie's a top bloke. I don't know Colin, but yeah, mate, thanks for reaching out, and yeah, you're basically working in the area where Damo and I spent quite a bit of time, or you more so, Damo.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Spent a very long time in Catherine investigation, and yeah, I take my hat off to them. They're a very busy job. You'll go from just poking along doing your thing, catching up on a file, to all of a sudden there's just chaos and mayhem. So yeah, it's a good gig. I think it's a Northern Investigation Unit now. It used to be KIU. It's now, Northern NIS, Northern Investigation Section.
Yeah,
so,
It changed. Yeah, it changed to that. Might have been after you left. I'm not really sure.
2011. I was in NIS. I was the founding member of NIS.
Oh, look at that! Bloody hell. Back in your early days, mate, when you were just you bit up from a piglet, I suppose.
Yes, little rotund bastard too at that point.
Mate, we got a one from Instagram. Eden basically said, "Bloody fantastic insight on how rough policing really is up here." So yeah, he said, "Thanks a lot for putting the podcast out there, mate." We got quite a few as well, saying we're doing a really good job. Damo Doug's, especially with that charity one, he said, just putting that stuff out there was really good. Pleased.
Definitely.
And then, we got Leon. He got in contact, said, "Hey, gents, Civi here. I really enjoyed the podcast. You've done what you set out to do, as it really does cover all the emotions. I know you blokes aren't in the job now, but I'd love to hear more about the difference in the job from when you guys first started to what a probie starting next week would experience." And then he just goes on. He said, "I understand why the podcast is not a TV show. now
Yeah,
too.
yeah, cheeky bugger. He's not wrong though. He's not wrong. If you're going to tell the truth, I can't knock you for it, so that's okay.
No, that's right.
We're certainly not catwalk models, that's for sure. Yeah.
No. Well, if we were, mate, I don't think anybody come to the show.
No.
Yeah, so he said you're humanising a job that never looked human to him. So yeah, so he said he thinks we're doing all right.
Well, that's hitting the brief, so that's what we want. That's really
Yeah,
good.
that's right.
Yeah.
And look, sorry, mate.
Sorry. Covering off on the what would a probie face today? I think we can very, very quickly cover that. What they're going to face is a lot more technology than we had. You're not going to get the old school like we had. The old school for you, it will be what was our new school. So we're basically a generation later. 18 years is roughly, give or take, is basically a generation. So we came out with guys who'd worked in, they were still frontline and they were in the 80s and 90s. No technology, pretty rough and tumble. The accountability's always been there, but the accountability has tightened to the point where it's almost inhuman. And I think that's what they'll be facing. They'll be straight out on the road. Probably not the laughs we had, and basically every single thing you do can be scrutinised on multiple angles of body-worn camera, which sounds excellent, except when you can have a human moment when you're just speaking to your crews, and that can be picked apart as unprofessional. It's like, well, there was no civilians within earshot. We were just having a conversation amongst coppers. But it doesn't matter, your conversation was unprofessional. So, okay, right. So, look, I think it'll be harder now than it was for us. So I think it's good to just very quickly just cover off on that, because we do have to move on to our guest of honour, mate.
Yeah, I know. She's sitting there watching patiently at the moment.
Yeah.
Mate, so do you want to do the introduction, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a VIP, but as we said before the start of the program, we have a VIM, a very important mum. I'd like to welcome, for the first time in the history of Two Ordinary Cops, we have Mrs. Liz Schultz, who's Schultzy's mum. Welcome, Liz. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
That's the way. Oh, very good.
Yes.
So, for everybody listening, I'm just going to keep out of it because I've decided I can't be impartial, and I've just let Mum's got the floor. So, Damo, you're going to do most of the interviewing, and so go ahead, mate.
Well, we'll flick it back and forth like we do. We're going to properly interview Liz like a pair of coppers used to do, but that's okay. It'll be less intimidating because we're not alleging anything, so it's all good. But yeah. But Liz, look, thanks very much for coming on. What we thought we'd do with this is we were having a conversation yesterday. I was just freezing cold and not really feeling it yesterday, and we thought, well, why don't we think of something to do? And then we thought, well, let's get your mum on and tell us, because you've been up to the Northern Territory and you've seen how things operate. And I think what we want to do is get a little bit of a chronological conversation about your feelings about Ben being in the police. And we can move on to specifics about when you're up there and he's being called out bush and all the rest of it. But if you like, we might take it back even before that, because there's a bit of history of policing within your family and John's side as well, which is Schultzy's dad. So we're off on a bit of that sort of inspired Ben to join the police force in the first place.
Yeah, well, my brother was a police officer. John's uncle was a police officer. His brother is a police officer. So yes, there has been quite a few police officers in the family, and I was really interested when my brother became a police officer, and I was very proud when Ben became a police officer. Actually thought after he finished crayfish diving, I breathed a sigh of relief, because I thought, well, at least he's out of danger. But then he had 6 months as a policeman, as a painter, and then he joined the police force. He wasn't out of danger anymore.
No, not at all.
Well, at least I had people looking after me in the police force.
Yeah, well, people have been looking after you for a long time. When he was a little boy at preschool, all the little girls used to rush upstairs and get his lunchbox, and if he was cold, they got his jumper and everything. And I remember his teacher saying to me, we really need to work on making Ben more independent. Well, I think we did a good job.
Oh, so it's been happening for years, mate.
Yes.
Hey, I hadn't figured out back then. I lost it when I got older. I don't know. I don't know what the
I
trick I
still
had.
haven't figured it out. That's very funny. Well done. Sorry, Liz. Keep talking.
He was always a champion for the underdog. There was a couple of kids at his school that had, one was a pretty overweight boy and he had very buck teeth, and the kids used to really get on to him. And Ben was always his champion. He used to look after Thomas. And there was another boy there who had a growth problem, and he was very tiny, and Ben always used to look after him too. He seemed to be able to gather everybody in and look after them when the other kids used to tease them and carry on.
Yeah, no, nothing's changed there either.
No, that's right.
No, he's still the same.
Yeah.
Probably why I got in so many fights as a kid.
No, that's all right. So, Liz, obviously, he's joined the police, gone through. Actually, we've mentioned it in a previous podcast, but we had a very funny conversation when we first met, just talking about where we're from. And you guys live in Gowrie Junction. My mum and dad still are in Gowrie. Oh, no, you used to, live in Gowrie Junction. And my mum and dad are still in Gowrie Junction. And we found when we first met at the college that we were in Darwin and our parents were about 400 metres apart in a tiny little outlying suburb of Toowoomba.
Yes, exactly.
So that was pretty funny on our behalf. We couldn't I didn't believe him. I sort of looked at him like, oh, you're stitching me up, like, what's going on there? Of all the likelihood, the first person I meet in the Northern Territory Police's parents live in Gowrie Junction. So that was pretty funny.
Not very big. Not
No.
very big at all.
No. So what were your thoughts when the reality of yes, Ben's in the police force now, he's going through training, because obviously he would have reported back about what he's up to. Just tell us a little bit about those early days.
Well, it was really, really interesting because he used to tell us a reasonable amount. I wouldn't say he told us everything because you don't do that with your mum and dad. But I was really, the day that he graduated, or whatever you call it. What does Dad say? Oh, when he was sworn in.
Yep.
And Ben used to say, "Oh, when I'm sworn in, get over here, you bugger."
Yeah.
It was a great day. I really enjoyed that. We went back to Catherine after the graduation and we stayed a few days. And then when Ben was driving to take, oh, this is another funny story. Ben was driving us in to go to Darwin to catch the plane home. And we're chatting away as we drive into Catherine, and all of a sudden, woo, 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 police pulled Ben over, or be told, waved him in, and he said, went up to the window and said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And Ben said, "Yes, I wasn't taking any notice, and I went from an 80 to a 60, and I was still doing 80, and he said, "Can I see your license?" And Ben gave him the license, and he said, he took it back to the car like they do, and all of a sudden he came back and he said, "This says that your address is the police academy in Darwin." And Ben said, "Yeah, that's right, mate. I start work here on Monday."
Just pull over in Catherine.
Anyway, he didn't get a ticket.
No.
Oh, the old days.
Yeah, that's right.
These
Man,
days it'd be, here's
He
your
just
ticket,
said,
here's your
"Don't do
defect.
Yeah, don't do it again."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lucky it wasn't a traffic cop. Otherwise, I would have been done.
He was a traffic cop.
No, yeah, he was, but he was a bush traffic cop. He wasn't.
right.
He wasn't one of
Okay.
the Darwin.
I know how your feelings about them.
It's all good.
Yeah.
They're still on the same team. Yeah.
So yeah,
We
after that we spent a lot of time in the territory. Not so much before he went bush, but once he went to Ramingining, it was really, we stayed up there for months, and it was a very, very interesting time to see how people lived. And when Ben got a call out, sometimes we'd have to be at the station. He always said we should have a uniform because he was the only one there a lot of the time. And people would come and ask questions, and I'd have to say, "Well, I'm sorry, Ben's not here, but he will be back, sometime," and pass on the messages to Ben. So that was good. A lot of cleaning up. because Ramingining at the time was the old station, and it was just the dongers around this big area. And because the police only came in every now and again, and when they did come in, they were busy. Like there was no cleaning up in the kitchen or anything like that. And I spent weeks cleaning up. It was really, I remember I was in the kitchen one night cooking the dinner, and all of a sudden I felt this bump on my leg, and I looked down and there was this huge rat.
Oh,
And I think he got a bigger fright than I did, actually, because he scuttled under the fridge but left his tail hanging out. So, yeah, it was, and the food, so much food, because every time anybody came, they brought food with them, but when they left, they never took it. So, there was a lot of cleaning up to do. One of the first things I used to do with Ben when he got to, I think it was Borroloola, or could have been Ramingining as well.
Ramingining, I think.
Yeah, was slap a hazard sign on his fridge, because he never cleaned the fridge out. He was too busy.
is that what he told you?
Yeah.
Well, I knew he was too busy. And we, at the old station in Ramingining, I loved it, because the drug squad had come through, the fisheries had come through, and I'd make a huge, great meal, and everybody would sit around, and then they'd tell tales and stories, and it was just fantastic. I loved it. I loved all those boys. They were just part of the family as far as I was concerned.
It was, I think you really enjoyed the night when the fisheries came through, and I think that was John Penny.
Yes.
Was one. Unfortunately, he's passed away.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah, and what was the other? Hutchinson's or Hutchin? I can't remember his name. I do forgive me, but the stories that were told that night. I remember you and Dad sitting there saying afterwards that was one of the best nights you ever had.
Oh, it was. It was fantastic. I just think it's just like a big family. Everybody pulls together. They all back one another up. It's just, yeah, it's great.
So what I like about that is you've got I think the whole idea is what your shout out earlier on was mentioned about humanising the police force. Well, if you've got Schultzy's mum and dad, here they are at this police station that you're coming to, and you're cooking for the specialist units that are coming out to do their job. It's like those specialist units are highly trained, very good at what they do, but when it comes to everyone's got to eat, and when they're sitting around at night time, it just becomes a big social family barbecue.
Yeah.
So, and one thing you would have noticed is Ramingining and Borroloola as well is you would have mixed with not just police. There would have just been lots of different services and people out there coming over. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, more so at Borroloola. Ben used to have this breakfast every Sunday morning, and everybody came. The nurses, the teachers, the fireys, the police. And, everybody would bring something, and we'd all sit round, and breakfast could be from 7:30 to 10:30. It was really, really good. I met, now I can't remember the woman's name.
Oh, that's all right. We do that all the time.
It'll come to me. Yeah, Nettie.
Nettie.
I met Nettie at Borroloola, and I'm still friends with her on Facebook. And Shannon. I'm a Shan fan. He was a lovely boy.
Oh, that's hilarious. I think my wife's a Shan fan too, probably.
Yeah, I am.
Everyone's a Shan fan.
So is Miriam, mate.
Yeah, I loved him. And I used to make him sticky date pudding with lots and lots of sauce.
So, to bring up to speed, Shannon Harvey, not only is he blessed with extremely good looks, he's one of the nicest blokes God ever blew breath into. So he was able to de-escalate things. He was very, very physically capable if he had to be. He was only a year or two younger than me, but he was still playing very high-level rugby league.
Yeah.
Just a good fella, just an all-round good bloke. So yeah, that's Shannon. He's still in the job.
He was. We were there when he met Michaela, and he's still involved in football with the kids now. He runs a kids football thing, and
Yep.
I think
good
he's got a
cop.
bit of grey hair now, though.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, probably.
Love him anyway.
We're not as young as we once were. Yeah. Yeah. So one thing we've mentioned before, I mean, we've spoken about how you enjoyed your time and you were really proud of Schultzy out in those places. And we all loved you too, Liz, just quietly. And John as well. Like you guys were always really good to all of us because, as you know, we all used to pull together. A lot of us were orphans a lot of the time because we'd be rostered over holidays or whatever else, and you'd be up there for those particular holidays, and we'd be around. So we really got to know you as like our adopted mum and dad as well, and not just me. There was lots of people who had you as adopted mum and dad, and that was all the fun stuff. Sorry,
we stayed with you in Borroloola when Ben wasn't there yet.
That's right.
We stayed in your yard, and we stayed with you or outside the fence at Tennant Creek.
And that was only because we couldn't get the caravan underneath the little carport because we were going to put you in the backyard where it'd be nice and tucked away, but you were too high. So poor old Liz and John have come from Toowoomba to Tennant Creek, which, hey, listen, we had fun in Tennant Creek, but the crime rate is a little bit ordinary. And anyway, Liz and John are parked up with their levelled out caravan in the gutter out the front of our place in Ford Crescent, Tennant Creek. And I reckon there might have been some dulcet tones carry on at night. Were there, Liz?
Pardon?
Were there some dulcet tones at night that you would have heard through the place and a few words?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I was never scared. I was never scared anywhere I stayed, but basically most of the places I stayed were in the police compound.
Yeah.
So that didn't,
or parked outside the policeman's house.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we parked on the front lawn of Ben's house at Catherine.
Yeah. Yep. No, it was really good. I remember you and John used to pull up and you had your little ceremony where you'd set there was a ceremony and like an orchestration of how you'd set your caravan up, and I just loved it. It was so efficient and so well done. And it was a beautiful, homely caravan. I really liked your caravan.
Yeah, it was very livable.
Yeah.
We went out. We camped a couple of times out at Charlie's at Catherine.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yep. And John's sister and her husband and friends of ours, they left their caravans there while they went up to Litchfield or wherever they went. He was a good bloke, Charlie.
Yeah.
He's still alive. He's still a good bloke.
Still a good bloke.
And I believe he's still good. But look, that's just, you mentioned something there, and Damon mentioned it earlier about like the police. It is one big family. Like when you guys needed a safe place for your caravans to stay, well, you went, up to Jabiru or Litchfield or this, that, and the other. There's always all you have to do is ask your mates that have a few acres, and they'll set the caravan up.
Yeah.
And and look after it. And I think it only cost you a bottle of rum, didn't it, Mum?
Oh, yeah. At Charlie's it did.
Yeah.
I don't know what it cost me at Damo's. Nothing. He was just too good.
In fact, it probably cost you because it probably would have worked out in the wash. But I think you came inside and cooked a few meals, and Ema cooked a few, and I cooked a few, and we had a great time there. You were there for quite a few days from memory.
Yeah, we were about 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, it was an excellent time because the other thing with the Northern Territory, and especially in those more remote places, is you are isolated from your family, especially if you're from interstate. And even the Territorians, a lot of them will be posted where their family's not, and it's a long way away. So it's just excellent to have long-term visitors come and stay with you because you do get a sense of homeliness and a sense of family. And we really enjoyed having you there. Like we actually didn't want you to leave. It was really
enjoyed
good.
It too.
Yeah, it was really good. And I mean, I was getting called out and I was working, but at least Ema was there, and we had no kids at the stage.
Her mum was there too.
Oh,
Ema's mum was there at the time.
That's right. That's why you couldn't stay in the house because we only had we had 2 bedrooms, and they were both occupied.
But that's all right. We had our bed with us.
And you had your own bed, so it worked out fine. But from memory, Ema was pregnant and quite unwell, and I was working ridiculous hours, so I wasn't there much. But you guys had it all under control. It was really good to be able to come home and know that Ema was looked after and that everyone's looked after and no one's. And I'd walk home to beautiful home cooked meal and a couple of beers. It was just brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I
It
think
was
that's
really
what Ben enjoyed when we were up there too, was the fact that he could come home and get fed.
Yeah, didn't have to
I
worry about it.
remember one time we were going to have a barbecue at Maningrida. Ben said to me, "You won't have to cook, Mum, we'll have a barbie." Okay? So we all set off for Maningrida, and when we get there was trouble. And they all pinged off, and who cooked the barbie? John and Liz.
Well, actually,
And then
I'm going
I
to
had to
blame.
take it all over to the police station for them to eat it.
Yeah, while they're typing away. Yeah, that's your fault, Schultzy.
But still,
Mate, I'm a shit magnet. I always have been. It's, actually, there was one also, I think, in Ramangini, Mum, where I organised a big dinner one night, and everybody came over, except I was the only one not there,
he got
because I'd
called
been
out
working
just
on
before it happened.
yeah.
Oh, no.
But anyway, it was good fun. I have fabulous memories. I just really miss the territory. It
Yeah,
really hooked me.
yeah, it does that. The
Just
old
the
NT.
different things that happened. I remember when Paddy, his wife, used to do the cleaning in the station. And they went away for 3 weeks, and I was up there, and so they asked me, would I do it? Well, I would love to have gone to Darwin and had a really, really good talk to some of those people over there, because you're in a red dirt country. They give you a station with pale grey, slightly porous tiles. So you can imagine the red dirt that came in there, especially under the desks. The rest of it was pale cream. And it took a lot of cleaning. Something else I remember from then too was after Ben moved into the new station, he came home one day and he said to me, "Mum, I've got a good job for you. You can work in the air conditioning all day." "Oh, that's good," I said. So I went over to the station next morning and he gives me this big box and it was full of keys. Nothing tagged. There was keys for the VOQs, front door and back door, screen and main door, 4 police houses, back door, front door, screens, evidence room. What do you call it? Where you store your guns and everything.
Oh, armory.
Yeah,
The armory, yes. The only 2 that I really recognised were the cells because they were huge. And then there was all the duplicates that had to go in Ben's, a special cupboard in Ben's office that also had a key. It took me 3 days to tag and name all these keys. But I was in air conditioning.
You should have been on the payroll, Liz.
I can tell everybody, and for all the hierarchy of the police, that's what $12 million gets you. It doesn't get you key tags.
No,
No.
apparently.
No, it doesn't get the key tags. And as far as operational security goes, I would trust Liz more than I'd trust half the coppers. So, and I trust them too. I'm just saying that's how much I trust Liz. So there was no issues.
No, there was also the courthouse was in that as well. Well, I don't know how many doors were on that courthouse, but each one had a screen, and then there was a key for that and a key for the main door, and the evidence room. And I said that, and the interview room. The interview room that had a key. Front door had a key. Back door had a key.
I couldn't think for a minute.
We should have been on the payroll because John used to wash all the police cars.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the story about good old Jack?
Oh, yes. We were going to Jabiru. Okay.
Yeah.
And anyway, Ben and Jack pulled up this big 4-wheel drive. It was a woman driving. And they got out and did whatever it is they had to do. And when they got back in the car, Jack said, "I have never seen a car that clean." And then he realised, of course, that John used to clean the police cars. And he said, But no, John, not as clean as yours. No, John, no, definitely not as clean as yours. And he kept going on and on, and all of a sudden he said, I think I'll stop now. I'm digging a bigger hole.
He was a funny bloke, Jack. He was a Aboriginal community police officer, and he came out. He only recently out of the college, I think. And one of the ones I used to drive pretty quickly. For anybody listening, and anyway, we're in the front seat, and Mum and Dad are in the back, and anyway, we've hit the dirt road just past Owen Pelly. And of course, gone over the first bump, and usually I do get those police cars airborne from time to time. And anyway, we came down, and Jack turned around. He goes, "Okay, passengers, the captain's put on the fasten seatbelt signs. Please secure your tray table."
He was a nice guy, Jack. He really was.
Oh, that's good. So, one I was going to ask earlier, but the story was too good, so we flowed with it. But we've spoken about the good stuff. Schultzy's often mentioned that sometimes you got a bit apprehensive when you heard a few of the bit of the information that he was being sent out to when out in those bush stations. Do you want to just tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, as a mother, you do worry a bit, but I knew that he was well trained, and I knew he knew what he was doing. I must admit that since you've started your podcasts, I'm more worried than I was then. Because he never told us a lot of that stuff. And I thought, gee, I could have been so worried. But no, I used to stay awake and wait for him to come home, especially at Borroloola, because he'd come in, he'd have his dinner after doing a full day, and then hour and a half later, he'd get a call out. Off he'd go, and I'd stay, well, wasn't always asleep then, but, and he'd come back, and he'd say, I'm going to bed now. Hour and after that, get a call out, because mainly there was only two of them there, and it was pretty tough.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I did sort of, I was concerned, but I knew that he was well trained and that he had all his training behind him. And
yeah. I will. I'm just going to cut in there while I remember Damo. It doesn't mean that she doesn't get cranky at you from time to time, because I do recall when we were in Ramangini, I did get called to go up to Manningrida to help good old Johnny Tickner, because Johnny Tickner, apparently they bogged a police car. And anyway, it must have been about 7 o'clock at night or something, or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, or evening. And anyway, we head up there to Manningrida, and it ended up being an all night. We finished at about 5:30 in the morning. We had to go and rescue some people. We ended up getting 2 police cars bogged in the swamp and got them out. Then rescued some people and pulled their car out as well. And anyway, we came back and we had a quick barbecue breakfast at about 5:30 in the morning. I had 1 can of beer, which is normal when you're a police officer, when you finish your shift, and I went to sleep.
We just say 5:30. We don't say 5:30 p.m. or a.m. It doesn't matter.
no,
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
And anyway, at about, I think it was about 8:30 or something, my phone starts ringing, and I'm going, oh shit, and I'm passed out, absolutely dead to the world. Anyway, answer it. My mum goes, oh, and I'm going, yeah, hello, and she goes, you've been up there drinking, haven't you?
Are you drunk? Oh, that's what he sounded like.
Oh, but yeah, deliriously tired, but yeah. Yeah. That's universal. We all get accused of that. Because don't get me wrong, that was a perfectly reasonable assumption, Liz.
Assumption, yeah, it was. Yeah.
However, it was not always the case. Yeah.
Hey, Damo, I know we've spoken about this one, but that's not the only time Lizzie's got cranky, is it?
Oh, yeah, no. So, yeah, we were both in Borroloola at the time, and it was New Zealand celebrates Crate Day. What was the reason for it again? What's the reason behind Crate Day? I can't remember.
A Crate Day? Oh,
Yeah.
it was started off as I think it was believed to be a university student started up, and it moment. They want to make it a national holiday and all that sort of stuff, which
Yeah.
I'm touched.
We'll just run down what it was. There was a pretty good number of Kiwis working in Borroloola at the time, and I was over there, and we were at Schultzy's place. I'd left. I was in Alice by this stage. I think I'd come back for court or something similar. Anyway, we were underneath the house, and what crate day is you have to drink 12 long necks of beer in 12 hours. Sounds easy. It's not. Towards the end, it gets a bit challenging. Anyway, Liz, from the minute we started, wasn't a big fan. She's thinking, this is ridiculous binge drinking. And I remember Liz was upstairs. And anyway, by the end of the evening, getting towards evening time, we'd started at what, 10 o'clock in the morning or
12. You start at 12.
Midday, that's right. Yeah, we'd started at midday, and lunchtime, like, it was pretty sedate. Music was playing. It was pretty relaxed. It was just a normal day out, hanging out. And John and Liz were upstairs, and anyway, come about 7 o'clock at night, things were getting a bit rowdy, and but not violent or anything like that, just rowdy and a bit uncouth. Anyway, what happened? I think we forgot who was upstairs, and our language was getting a bit loose, and it was all getting a bit rough. And anyway, there's a very, very naughty song that I'll just go. It goes, "I wish all the ladies." That's how it starts, and I won't continue how it goes, but that's how it starts. Anyway, it's a rhyming song, and it's not very nice. And it was singing that quite a bit. And anyway, everything had gone a bit quiet, and I hadn't realised. I think I'd gone away for a toilet break, and I'd come back. Anyway, I spun my head around the corner and I went, "I wish all the lady." And I remember I got a finger straight in my face going, "And that's enough out of you too." And I went, "Oh, sorry, Liz."
And they all cleared off to the fire station.
Oh, yeah. No, that's right. We did. We moved because we were getting a bit loud, and you were trying to watch TV upstairs, and we were swearing, and it was just an unruly mob. And anyway, we were off call, so we were pretty loose because there were other people. I mean, I wasn't working there, but there were other people covering the phones, so it was sort of the time to let your hair down a bit, whatever hair he had left on his noggin anyway. So it was
Not a lot.
Not a lot, no. So, yeah, that was a very funny night out. But actually, Liz, I'll just double back a bit if you don't mind. You mentioned since you've listened to the podcast, because I know you've known both of us. Well, obviously, Ben's your son. You've known him a bit longer, but you've known me a long time as well. So in our career, you've basically known both of us from all the way back to that excited recruit right through to sort of hardened detectives and sergeants and in charge of other people and quite responsible. And we had Ema on the show, and she mentioned how she'd seen the change was that we were no longer excited. It was just a job and we had to get things done, and you hear about things later. I know that Ben mentioned that you listen to our worst jobs, and that's the stuff we would never share. So do you want to tell us a bit about how you felt when you listened to that, our worst jobs?
Yeah, it made me a lot more understanding as to how sometimes Ben would come home and he'd be really, really quiet. And I'd say, "Was he all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine, Mum. Thank you. I'm fine." And it made me understand too why people drink so much when they've got a job like that. I'm not saying they drink solidly all the time, but sometimes it's just a reason to get lost.
Yeah, I think we blow a lot of steam. I certainly enjoy a beer at the end of the day, but I don't feel the need to get out of bed and drink it. But a lot of people aren't like that. Who've been through this sort of thing. I think Schultzy and I are pretty lucky that we had that humour and all the rest of it. But I remember Schultzy saying that. He said, "Oh, Mum said, I understand why you have a beer. I'll never say don't drink so much ever again." It's sort of...
Even I drank more up there.
Sorry?
I could down 3 stubbies without a problem.
Oh, geez, I down 3 stubbies before I start drinking.
Yeah. Damo, you don't know me. I'm a one-pot screamer.
Yeah. But yeah, what I liked about that is I've experienced similar. So I've had family members get in contact since we've been doing this podcast, and they sort of, "Oh, your Damo's in the police," brush it off. See things on the news and go, "Oh, geez, the police did this wild thing the other day." "Oh, but Damo doesn't do that." And it's like, not only did I do it, I normally ran it and was in charge of the guys who were dealing with it, and I was quite often the person right in the middle of it all. But your family doesn't understand that because they've got a different relationship with you. Now, would you agree with that? That hearing
Yes,
back,
I
you
would.
can't believe that my Ben was involved in that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I yeah. Ever since you've been doing the podcasts, I've had a lot more understanding of the sort of pressure you were under, and I didn't. Well, Ben never mentioned, and you probably never mentioned either, some of the horrific things you'd seen. I knew you'd go out to an accident, but I had no idea what you faced when you got out there or anything like that. Ben involved us in a couple of things when he was at Romanginning that time, Ben, when that ute came through and they had that, someone had tipped you off
Tipped
about
you
the
off with the
soft drink.
drugs. Yeah.
Mm. And we had to, and they stopped the ute. They brought into the police yard. But then Ben had to go across to the police station to do a few things. So John and I had to stand there and basically keep guard while he wasn't there because he was there on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Nifty, good old Neville. He was the one that said we might get you some uniforms for your mum and dad, and we'll put them on the payroll.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind that because I know when my brother was in the police force and he was in a one-man station, his wife did a lot of work. Like he'd be out on a job and she would have to, people would come in and they'd want their license and she'd have to make an appointment and answer the phone. And yeah, they were probably better days than they are now.
Oh, and they that's a bit unsung hero stuff, that sort of thing. That's just people making things work out in places where there's not a lot of resources. So,
Yep.
To be involved in that sort of thing is that's really admirable, that sort of stuff. And I mean, the beauty of that is you haven't, like guarding a vehicle or something like that. Obviously, drugs or whatever else would be out of it. But the fact of the matter is, you're not really guarding it. You're just keeping an eye on it, and then you can attest that nobody came near that vehicle. So you're an eyewitness who can provide evidence, if it came to that the vehicle hasn't been touched in any way. I've stood here and I've watched it the whole time.
Yeah.
Talk about credibility. You'd be more credible than me and Schultzy in a court. So if it ever got to the point, well, this is Mrs. Liz Schultz, it's like, oh, well, yes, Mrs. Schultz, that sounds exactly correct to me, and I believe you completely. Don't know about your son or that clown of a mate of his, but that's, and I think that's what would have made your memories up there, with the fact that you weren't just up there on tour, you were actually involved in the whole situation. So
yeah. And we really enjoyed it. Like John got all the lawns going at Remingtoning and
Hold on. Lucky we weren't paying for water out there, because I think when he started actually watering the whole Ramingining compound, he was going through 36,000 litres a day.
Yeah, what about the time that something went wrong and didn't turn off as well? That went all night.
The pump didn't turn off on the tank, so the whole street ended up full of water.
Well, lucky it happened in Ramingining, which is never going to have a water issue.
No.
And not somewhere in Western Queensland, which definitely would have a problem. Yeah.
I remember one night, and we were there. And who was that guy that looked after the generators, John? Ben?
John, geez. I know I look like that, but yeah. Well, you had bloody hell, John actually looked after. He had the thing, but then the other bloke that actually he worked as a contractor under John, because John had the contract, and I can't remember his name.
He was a real. He looked like a real bush.
Yeah,
he was beard, and he was rough, and he had
really
a couple of buttons on his shirt. Anyway, Ben invited him over for a barbecue one night, and he said, "I'll bring a potato bake." Okay, so he brought this potato bake, and it was in this battered old tin, covered with a tea towel. And when he took the tea towel off, I have never seen a more beautiful dish. It could have been in a 5-star hotel. It was just beautiful, the way it was presented, and he had half with one thing in it and half like split in half, and I couldn't believe it. I was expecting something really rough and ready, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it tasted beautiful too.
Yeah, you
So
get
you
those
shouldn't
rough
judge.
times. Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
he
You get
was a
those
rough
rough
diamond.
diamonds.
But
Yeah,
I just couldn't believe how beautiful it was. It was just fantastic.
You you get to meet some incredible people out in those locations, and like they all do look a bit rough, but they're some of the best people you ever meet.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, I mean, you do run into a few idiots as well, but yeah, I can't remember his name. I'll call John Cameron after this actually, and make
He
sure I mention
lived
him in the next one.
he lived at McLean or Grafton or something originally. I know
He did,
that.
yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah.
actually probably close to you, Damo.
yeah, just down the hill. Yep.
Yeah. He's got a farm actually. Yeah, northern New South Wales, like close to you, close to Grafton. Now you mention it, Mum. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. On the
So
Clarence.
yeah.
No, really good. So, Liz, is there anything you thought we'd ask you that you haven't been asked yet that you'd like to talk about?
No, not that I can think of.
So, what you're saying is we're really good interviewers. Is that what you're saying, Liz?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if she's actually. I don't know if
If
she's made all the admissions yet, mate.
pardon.
I don't know if you've made all the admissions yet.
No, I don't think we've finished extracting all the evidence out of you yet, Liz. We've got to keep asking questions.
Well, keep going, keep going.
I think we might finish off if you don't mind. What this is actually quite a good question. What advice would you give to the mother of a son or daughter who is entering the police force right now?
I would probably give them to tell them to work hard, to study hard, to know what they were going to try and glean as much information as they could to make their passage through the learning easier. Don't muck around, just go in there, put your head down and study hard, and always be true to yourself, and always perhaps be aware that there is more than one side to every story, and
Yep.
not to make judgments.
Yeah. And I think Damo was also asking about parents, mother. What would you say to parents that have a kid going in?
To what?
I'd like to parents. Is that what you're meaning, Damo?
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
sorry. So
Oh, I
that actually
see.
worked
You
out. No,
wanted
no,
to know
Liz,
me
that was
parents.
beautiful
Yeah.
because that worked out really well for what to do for the recruits going in. That was actually excellent. That was an unintended victory there.
So
However,
you think about, you want
yeah,
to
the
know about
mums
the
and dads.
parents.
So mums and dads of people, it might be young people in their early 20s. So they might have their eldest son or eldest daughter or one of their children entering the police force who's now a young adult and they're going to something. There might be some apprehension about them joining the police force given the risk that is involved. What would you say to someone like that?
I would say there is risk involved, definitely. But if your child is well trained and they're really keen, I wouldn't hold them back, because I think it's a very, very worthwhile profession.
Yeah.
And that's because of the fact that our family's full policemen,
Yeah.
basically. But yeah, I mean, I watched Keith go through when he went. I think he was only 17 when he started at the academy. My brother was only 19, I think, when he and the training in Brisbane at that time was pretty minimal, as from what I can gather. I mean, when you interview David, you will probably find out that it wasn't as intense as your training.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think
So,
there's a
but
lot
yes,
more.
definitely encourage them, because it's a fantastic profession. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
The one thing I will say, Mum, and I think we kind of covered a little bit off on it, but can you see much of the change in me from when I started to when I finished?
Oh, yeah, good question. Yeah.
Yes, I can. I can see good changes and I can see bad changes. Not bad like that, but the fact that you will never probably be the same as you were before you joined.
No.
But you are also, how can I put it? You're also more understanding of people than you were. You're inclined to look deeper into things that happen than you did before.
Yeah, that's probably part of the skill of interviewing, I think, and
Yeah,
being a
I think so.
detective, or
Um,
investigator, I would say.
and you can often, I like the way both you boys um, don't see everything just in black and white. When there's people in trouble, um, you can see some of the reasons why they're in trouble, and you just sort of work from there. And you don't just say, well, look, you did this, boom, 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 or, you shouldn't be sitting in the car with the keys in the ignition while you've been drinking, even though they're not going anywhere. You have to be able to differentiate.
Yeah, yeah, you got to have
Yeah,
discretion.
Yeah,
that's a very good summary of both of us because we both operate completely in the grey. I think we
you
learned
do.
pretty early
And I
on.
know some of the things Ben has told me, the stories he's told me, that he could have just said, all right, come on, slap on the handcuffs, in you go. But then you're ruining someone's life then when maybe there's no need to.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to. Yeah. That is. And I can name a number of times that I've used my discretion to because I suppose that's a very valid point. I've learned why they're at that situation, and sometimes there's a better resolution than actually putting him behind bars. And I'll actually just mention something here, and I think I've said it before, but one of the things I always taught my young recruits when I was training people, as I said, whatever action we take, what we are trying to do is stop them from continuing that behavior. So
Yep,
whether it's a caution, whether it's letting them go with a hard talking to, whether it's a ticket, or whether it's arresting them and putting them in jail, our purpose is to stop that behavior from continuing and
yep.
getting justice. So,
And
uh,
sometimes you can't,
no,
but then it's very rewarding when you can,
yeah,
when you see someone change their lifestyle because of something that you've done.
yeah,
yep.
yeah, it doesn't happen often.
No, but
I was
still,
just thinking, here I am sitting there thinking about my 267 offences, 13, 14-year-old kid being charged with his fourth aggravated robbery, thinking that's probably not the best example. But there were certainly others. Yeah, yeah. But there were certainly others where they just needed a little bit of humanity. A little example of the grey there. I had a young girl come through just near Palmerston on the main drag heading into Darwin, and anyway, I was in a car that had a radar because I was a shift supervisor at the time, which is rare for me. Anyway, I had the radar on because every now and then you do get something anomaly, and if you need to write a ticket, you need to know the speed. So I happened to have the radar on, and she flew past me in the 80 zone, and she was doing about 104. Anyway, and I pulled her over, and she was a 17-year-old girl. And the second I pulled her over, I walked up, and I could just see, and if she was ghost white, she was absolutely petrified. And I needed to just, it's all right, just have you got your license? What I was looking for was criminality. I was looking for any level of involvement. I was looking for attitude. I was just having a look at what was going on. This was in the days where if you got your license and you went through your learners and your Ps in the Northern Territory, I think it might still be a thing. If you went through your learners and your provisionals, you would get an open license for 10 years for free if you didn't have any infringement notice or any demerit points taken away. Otherwise, you have to pay for your license, which is, a good incentive to drive well. Anyway, what had happened was she had she was going to, I think she was a high school student. She was going to a major exam and she was running through exam in her head. She was distracted in the fact that she was thinking about other things. I wasn't worried about her safety. I was the driving safety. She'd gone from 100 zone into the 80 zone and she was doing roughly 24 kilometres over the speed limit. I pulled her over. By the time I got back, she was bawling her eyes out, and legitimately bawling her eyes out, not at anything. She was just expecting the consequence. And I just questioned her. I said, so what's happening? She said, I just literally had a lapse in concentration of the speed limit, and I blew through there. And I mean, it was only 400 metres inside the 80 zone. And anyway, I just had a chat to her, and it was like, you know what? She doesn't need this. This is a good kid. I could tell she was studious. She was obviously very remorseful for what had gone on. And I handed the license, but the police systems didn't even know she existed except for a driver's license. So I remember just handing back the license and going, all right, consider this a caution. I do need you to be aware of, speed limits are in place for a reason. And if you were to run into the traffic police, that it would definitely be an issue. But look, I've got other things to do right now, and you don't need this. But I want your word that you're going to learn from this experience. And you could see her straighten up and just go, "Yep, no, definitely." And away she went. And I thought, well, that's a perfect example of a caution. And to me, that's that grey. That's the managing society. It's just that there'd be other people who might have been 5Ks over. What? You take the license and go back and see other penalty and other tickets and be like, 28 days to pay. And by the way, you've got bald tyres and there's the defect notice. You got 1 hour to get this vehicle off the road. So, to me, it's a.
In other words, don't piss me off.
Yeah. No. It's not that. It's not even. I don't need an ego trip. It's not that. It's just that you manage the person you're dealing with at the time. And the fact was, she was hysterical, thinking that. I mean, at the end of the day, she was going to get a ticket. It wasn't going to be. She wasn't going to lose a license. She wasn't going to be.
No.
It would have been a pretty good fine, but it wouldn't. It certainly was not the end of the world. But the fact of the matter was, it was for her because she's obviously a very studious person who was very normally very consummate in the way she went about her business, and a very young person. I'll give her that. But I could tell that her attitude. She was a person who would absolutely benefit more from having that deficit in her behaviour brought to her attention without necessarily being penalised for the next 10 years of paying for her license. So anyway, that was why I did that. And people would go, oh, hang on, she's 20 Ks over the speed limit. You can't. Well, I did. And go to Buggery. That's what happened. I don't know. I think that's that grey that you talk about. And I think both of us had that in pretty good proportion. We knew when to push down and when to release back. So
you did.
And Liz, just quietly, we pushed down a hell of a lot. There was a lot of very, very bad people put in prison for a very, very long time by me and Schultzy.
Yes.
I think I remember at one stage one of the officers came back. She was on holidays and she came back to Borroloola and she said, "Where are all the men?" And I said, "I've remanded them all in custody."
Only through their behaviour, not because
exactly.
It was you're not allowed to bash your wife, mate. Sorry about that.
That's right. Yeah. No, I think I sent 7 or 8 away in a week. And look, Borroloola was like that. It just used to go crazy, and we dealt with it. So mate, I will mention one other thing while we got Mum on here, and I'm not really much. Well, I imagine you can actually mention about it a bit. I thought one of the most ironic things was Mum was called to jury duty. And I don't think defence really realised where she came from, did they?
No.
And I believe you were quite instrumental in getting the guilty.
Mm. The case was attempted murder, and we had one person on the jury who kept saying, but he might have pulled, or she might have pulled back at the last minute, And I said, well, you have to, the judge said, you have to look at the evidence, and you don't know whether this person was going to go deeper or shallower or whatever. And anyway, we finally got the verdict, and the verdict was guilty. But this woman had said to this guy, I'm going to kill you. He was drunk. He was on the ground. She walked the full length of their units complex, walked upstairs, got a knife, came down. Once someone said to her, what have you got that for? And she said, I'm going to kill him. And then she went and she stabbed him. And fortunately, there was someone there who was brave enough to pull him away and put a towel against his neck. Otherwise, he definitely would have died. Mm. And, I mean, that was the evidence. You can't say, oh, well, maybe she decided at the last minute, I won't kill him. Because that's only thinking that might happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a very, very interesting case. I really enjoyed that. It was 6 days. And,
Yeah, right.
mm.
There you go. I
And
can
this
think of
one
nothing worse.
guy, there
Liz,
was
just quietly.
one funny bit there. This guy that had been stabbed, and the photos were pretty horrendous. And the prosecutor, no, the defence, well, he said, "I put it to you, whatever, whatever, whatever." And the guy looked at him and said, "And I put it to you that I didn't." And I thought, good on you, mate. Because he was
Good
a
work.
pompous little ass. He really was.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best way to handle defence lawyers.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. But that
No,
was
very
really
good.
interesting.
Yeah, so I always thought it was quite funny that the fact that my mother was actually called for jury duty.
Yeah,
Obviously,
well,
the defence didn't pick up that there were so many police in the family.
she
Yeah.
could have done what my wife did in Darwin when she went through, and she goes, "Oh, I understand that there is a role to be carried out here. I just want to let you know that my husband's a detective sergeant in Strike Force Trident. And I know a lot of the members in Strike Force Trident. Firstly, there could be a conflict in that I am aware of the arresting officers and I know them and all the rest of it, and there could be a conflict there." And she also said something, and I think I might have even given her these words, is, "By the way, if it gets past a committal hearing, that's pretty good evidence to me that it's probably going to go further." Like it was, thank you, madam, your services are not required. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that definitely would have come from you, Damo.
Yeah.
I can't remember where it was. You said one day, you said if it gets through a committal, they're guilty.
Oh yeah, look, not always. I know that a lot of magistrates will push a matter higher if they believe it needs more scrutiny, like a Supreme Court matter might. But yeah, a lot of the time, if we were pushing home a hardcore hearing file, we were pretty happy that we had the backing to do that. So,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things. But
Ben, who was
look,
the guy who was at Ramingining when State of Origin was on? He was a Blues supporter.
Oh, Craig Barrett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the superintendent.
Craig
Yeah,
Barrett.
yeah,
Mm.
Yeah.
He was a Blues supporter, and the rest of us were all Maroon.
yeah.
He was a
Well
brave
done.
man.
Well
Yes.
done.
And we beat them.
Yeah. Well, that was in the middle of the 8 straight streak.
But I was just going to say, we were in the police air wing. We were told that if something happened, we'd get left wherever it was. But we went for a flight in the police air wing, and when we got to Catherine from Darwin, who should get on but this guy?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh dear. But he just looked at John, who was in with the pilot, and said, "Oh, you flying it today, John?"
Oh, too good.
Yeah.
And look, I know John's spoken about flying an air wing, and I know that John absolutely loved that.
We both did.
Yeah, he really enjoyed it. Small plane sitting up there with a captive audience with the pilot, and just really interesting stuff because they were very good planes. They're very technologically advanced planes.
Oh, they were gorgeous, yeah.
Compared to some of the glorified kites I've been in, that was actually a very good plane.
Does Damo know Matt?
Matt.
The one that used to fly us around in the little plane.
Yeah.
Matt. Yeah, you would do. Yeah.
Well, the first time we met Matt, Ben brought him in and introduced us, and he said, "Mum, I want you to treat him. Oh, he needs some lunch, and I want you to treat him like your own son." So I turned around to Matt and said, "The food's in the fridge." But I did get his lunch.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's probably a very, very good way to finish this off.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yes, mate. I was a traumatized kid. Had to do everything myself.
Oh,
That's why I worked out the how to get the girls to help me out in primary school.
Yeah, I've heard profound lies in my time, and that's right up there with. So, Liz, I just want to finish it up. I just want to wrap it up and say, look, thanks very much for coming on board. And look, thanks very much for everything you did for us up there because we massively appreciated it. It was a beautiful touch of home, especially when you're at Tennant Creek. We'd never wanted you to leave, both you and John. John's not here at the moment, but you both equally were just magical people to be around.
Thank you.
up in Ramingining. I know I caught up with you up there as well, and in Borroloola, and it was always a pleasure, except for the one time you mercifully chastised me, but that was deserved. I needed to pull my head in, and that was good. So
It wasn't
yeah,
just you, Damo. It was everybody down there. They were all
yeah.
getting pretty rough, including some of the teachers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, it was all getting a bit loose. It was all getting a bit out there, but that's okay. That happened, but we got pulled into line, so that was good.
I'm sure your mother would have agreed with me.
Yep.
She definitely would. She probably would have laughed a bit too, but she definitely would have agreed, and she would have done the same thing. No, it's excellent. I think the beauty, the value for the podcast is it really gives that insight. What I love is that you've explained how you went through things up there and your enjoyment and everything, and then a few of the apprehensions that you had. And then I really liked your advice to those going in, like trust the process. The guys know what they're doing, but provide that support. And I think that's really important. So I think that's excellent. I'm hoping that people will enjoy this podcast. I think they will.
I hope they do too.
I'll get some.
Otherwise, you might have to scrap it.
The feedback might be you and Schultzy, Damo and Schultzy, get off. We want Liz.
Yeah.
I doubt it. But anyway, thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Excellent.
All right. Well, we'll finish it off then, Damo. We'll see you all next week.
Well, indeed. All the best.